Check, 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 check. Okay. Yeah, no sound. Sorry, guys. This is going to be kind of a mess today. I didn't plan on... I'm on my laptop right now. I did not plan on this. My power is out. So my main setup here is totally dead. I've got no power right now. So I am rocking it off the laptop here. So yeah, but I wanted to come on and let you guys know that it'll be a bit of a different stream today. And also, I'm glad that I have a second to speak to you guys because just to let you guys know kind of a little bit of an update, what's going on with me, what you guys can expect. So I'm actually going to be moving. I'm moving out of Los Angeles literally tomorrow. That's probably why my power is out right now, because they're turning it off because I'm out of here. I'm leaving. And yeah. So however long you can stay is enough for us, baby. Thanks, Dad. Thanks. You guys can hear. That's great. So yeah, I'm leaving Los Angeles tomorrow. And just wanted you guys to know. I am not ending by any means the streams and what I'm doing, but I will be traveling over the next few days, so I won't be able to stream. But yeah, my time in Hollywood is coming to a close. And you know, over the last year, I'm sure a lot of you, or some of you, I don't know, you guys all have your own lives, so you're not keeping up with me all the time, I'm sure, but I'm sure some of you know about top development, and I was doing the top development stuff for a minute. And what that really was me really trying to find my way into Hollywood in a way that made sense and in a way that worked. And through that experience and through other experiences and through having an awareness of where the current industry is at, where it's headed, you know, I have friends that work inside of the studios. I have screenwriters that are pro writers that have sold scripts and have a sense of what's going on inside the industry, and I live here. So I've been able to have my ear to the ground in many ways, and I don't think that my path is into Hollywood now. Have fun with the vacation. This is for good. I'm leaving for good, Scorpion. And so yeah, so essentially all this to say that none of what I'm doing is stopping, but it's going to be different. Me trying to enter into Hollywood and that whole vision and goal has really shifted, and I think that's for the best. I'm very happy for the next step, and I'm very happy to be leaving Hollywood, leaving LA with my independence intact. Many people come here and end up getting into contracts and getting agents and getting managers and getting into situations where they are unable to easily leave. And that did not happen to me. And so the next step is going to be, well, you'll have to see. You'll have to see, Spear. I am moving to Tennessee, Noah. That's where I'm going. So I'll be out of here. I will be, and that's where I'm from originally. So that's where I'll be headed. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this next step. I think this is going to be absolutely what needs to happen. And I'm going to be fully independent. And I am now, and that's how I want things to stay. And there's no real reason to slave away for Hollywood in a way that, you know, isn't going to really pay returns. And I've got a lot of opinions about Hollywood and how things work out here, and I think a lot of how things really work out here is not seen by the general public, which obviously makes sense. But there's a lot of darkness out here, and there's a lot of manipulation. I think there's a lot of shadiness. And so, but I think that the internet has allowed us to do what I'm doing right now, right? Has allowed me to gain an audience, has allowed me to speak to you all, has allowed me to be of help to others, to find like-minded people, to work with screenwriters, both inside of the industry, and I've also worked with writers outside of the industry, independent writers, independent filmmakers, people that are actually making movies outside the industry, and that's been very cool. And so what I've realized is that Hollywood is not screenwriting. You know, you don't have to live in LA to be a writer. You don't have to live in LA to be a filmmaker. You don't need $1 million to make a movie. You need to understand how a story works. If you can really understand how a story works, understand how to write a scene, understand how to create drama, you can really make a movie anywhere. And I know that a lot of directors like to say things like that, like, you can shoot a movie on your phone and you can do it anywhere. But they're right. They really are right. It all comes down to how dedicated are you and how much are you willing to put in the hours and the work required to develop a skill and to be a person that is proficient and highly skilled at what they do and aware of how to actually develop a story, how to tell a story. And so I believe that the internet is allowing us a new way of communicating, a new way of distributing, a new way of telling stories, and that is the path that I'm going to be going on. And so throughout this last year, I've been very much in the middle, right? My philosophical conflict has been whether to stay and do Hollywood the way it's been done, or should I double down on this internet stuff and keep going in this new direction and try to tell the stories I want to tell and try to make the movies I want to make in a way that is different from the traditional way. And so for me, as I have watched social media develop over the last decade, and I have been a part of it, as I have watched Hollywood deteriorate and decline and continue to make worse and worse films, and the corporate structures inside to continue to get worse and worse and less productive, and listening to the horror stories that I've heard from my friends that work in the industry, and even through all of this, still coaching writers that are able to sell screenplays, and seeing what actually happens when that writer who works with me then goes forward and gets the agent, or goes forward and gets into the meetings and gets the budget to make the movie, and has the production team that's going forward and getting the studio notes and all of this. It's been great because I've been able to, in a way, vicariously live through them and see what works and what doesn't work. And there's nothing that I have seen about the current state of selling screenplays and being a Hollywood screenwriter that I personally find that attractive. It is a tough game, and one that, especially now, has been less and less rewarding. And because I've never really been the person that's telling you how to make it in Hollywood, that's never really been my brand, except for a moment there with the top development stuff, trying to do all of that. But it's never really been my brand. I've always been about the story. I'm not about the money in the sense of how do you make the money to make the movie, or how do you do the industry game, right? Those have never really been my focuses. My focuses have always been the story. And how do you tell a great story? And that's what I am going to continue to do going forward. So as I sit here streaming off my laptop in my townhouse in Burbank, I can literally see the back of the Hollywood sign mountain out my window right now. I drive by the studio lots every day on my way to get food. I have been here, and now it's time for something new. Now it's time for something new. Mr. Lee says, have I considered writing a novel instead? I believe in visual storytelling. I believe in using the screens, the computers, the phones, the theater screens to tell stories, and that's what I'm going to do. And if it takes me 20 years to independently make a movie, then fine. But that's what I'm going to do. So that's what's going on, and that's why I don't have power right now. And that's why I'm on the old crappy MacBook webcam setup here for a moment. What about graphic novels? That's a good question, Tom. I would definitely make a graphic novel. I love comics. I love graphic novels. I think that's an excellent way to tell stories, and you can do it cheaply, obviously way less than making a movie. And I would love to make an anime. Like, that would be very, very cool to do. So those are definitely story mediums that are on the table. I think the point is, here's the thing. The point is that I believe in story, and I believe in understanding story and how it works and how to effectively tell one. I don't believe in going through corporate ladders, right? I don't believe in figuring out how an industry works before I figure out how to tell a great story. And so because of that, I'm going to be going on my own direction. And I believe that telling great stories exists outside of a particular story medium. You know, where the idea that every great story has to be a $20 million Hollywood blockbuster is not true. And that you couldn't make a truly great, truly impactful story, truly impactful movie for very little money. You absolutely can. So, that is what is going on. And that's what I'm going to be up to. And so the next stage of this, the next stage of the journey is going to be very, very fun. I've got a lot of really cool things planned. I've got a lot of cool things planned for these streams. It's been hard to implement all of them, knowing that I've been moving, knowing I've got to take all this stuff down in front of me and ship it across the U.S. But the next phase of this is going to be really, really good. And I have been punched in the mouth in many ways over the last couple of years, both career-wise and personally. And all of those things have helped to develop my own character. This has been my adventure out here in LA, encountering trials, trying to handle problems, believing I had it all figured out, hitting my own surprise problems, and finally understanding what choice I needed to make. And so it has been an adventure out here, and I've loved being out here. I think it's been a great time. I've met a lot of really cool people. I developed a lot of cool relationships. But now it is time for the next adventure. And I think the next adventure is going to be even cooler than this one. By the way, in honor of the video, I hope you guys watched the How to Write a Perfect Climax video that came out yesterday. If you did not, I highly recommend you check that video out. It is currently up on the YouTube channel. I wanted to get that done before I moved because I think that's and that might be my favorite video I've made so far. So definitely check that video out. Also, because of that video, I'm running a course sale right now, and because I'm leaving, I'm running a course sale. So practicalscreenwriting.com, if you've been interested in getting into the practical screenwriting course, definitely check it out. I'm also doing, I think I told you, I'm doing a big refresh and adding a ton of new lessons to the course. I'm involved in doing that right now, and this is going to be the last sale before I do that. So definitely check that out if you are interested. And after I get all this done, after I get this whole refresh done, I'm raising the price of the course permanently. So if it's something that you've been thinking about, if it's something that you've been on the fence about, whether or not you want to do it, whether or not you're sure, this is a great time. It's not going to be this price again for a long time. So I highly recommend you check it out. But yeah, let's get into some questions here. The laptop is currently sitting at 61%, so we've already blown through 20% of the battery here. So we are going to do our best. Let's get into a couple questions here. Man, you guys are... Yeah, also if the stream is a little janky right now, I'm also off my phone's hotspot. I told you guys, no power right now. We are going full powerless. We are going full no grid right now. Just the phone, a laptop battery, and the dream. So Jerry Gao asks, I know you always emphasize that philosophical conflict comes first in any good story, but isn't character development more important? Because no one cares how good the conflict is. If they don't care, then they won't stick to the story. Jerry, I think you're a little... Let me clear up some confusion for you, because philosophical conflict and character development are the same thing. Character, how might a character develop? They develop by holding one side of the belief, and then they develop into holding the other side of the belief. If you watch the climax video that I put out yesterday, in the climax of Little Miss Sunshine, Richard, his character development goes from having the belief that your public perception defines you, and then he develops arcs into realizing that his family life, his personal life, and being authentic there is more important. And so therefore, the philosophical conflict is the setting or the backdrop for the character development to actually take place. They are unified. They are one. Scorpion, I'll definitely take a look at your script. Not this stream, unfortunately, but I'll definitely take a look at it. Hello, Lunda. Welcome to the stream. If you're new, you're coming to a bit of a weird one here. I'm currently off the laptop because my power is out, but enjoy. I will be back to the usual stream soon. And actually, not even the usual streams. I'm going to be working on a completely new sense of how I want to develop these live streams and how I want to directly help you guys write your stories on these live streams. That is my goal. And so right now, they've been kind of a Q&A style. But ultimately, I want to develop your stories with you. I want to work on your stories with you in a way where it's you and I can develop that story, and the people that come to the live stream can see how we're working on that story and how I'm developing it, and they can decide for themselves whether or not I know what I'm talking about or whether or not I'm full of crap. Eustace asks, can the final scene of a story rely solely upon the choice the main character has to make the whole story? In the sense of your climax? Are you asking me about a climax, or are you asking me about the final scene of a story? Because those are different things. Uh-oh, I think we might have power again. Hey, we got power again. That's excellent. That's excellent to see. Okay, well then in that case, I might have to set all this back up. That's awesome. Yeah, I called the power company and told them, hey, give me one more day, I need some power. And we're back. That's actually great. That is actually great. Okay, cool. Let me kick the big streaming computer on here. That's hilarious. What a fun stream. Already. All kinds of twists and turns. Noah says I'm gonna get a 6 in my story circle. I already did, friend. This year was my 6. This year was my 6. Oh my goodness. You guys have no idea what I've been up to in the background. Oh my goodness, this year has 2023. I don't know about you all, but 2023 was not my year. All right, let me see here. Okay, I'm gonna leave the stream up here for a moment while I set up my big computer. Okay, so the stream is probably going to go down for a moment while I switch computers. But I'm very happy to have power restored and to get back to the real computer. And then Scorpion, we should be able to actually take a look at your pages today, which will be awesome. Oh, and I need to send you guys the announcement as well. Put this in here real quick. Boom, boom. Okay. Jerry, it seems like you are extremely new to what I do here. This guy asks, do you have any suggestions for how to improve on writing screenplays? I have one or two, Jerry. I have one or two. Okay, the stream is going to go down for a moment. I am going to switch over to my other computer here, and I will be back in just a second. And that was great. It gave me a moment to kind of tell you guys what was going on with me, let you know kind of what's happening over the next few days. And yeah, so I will not be streaming the next few days because I will be switching up locations here. But don't change the channel. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to cut. Don't change the channel. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to cut. Ladies and gentlemen, and just like that, we're off the laptop. And we are on. Let me grab my Discord friends. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Check, check, 1, 2, check, check. Thomas telling me you can hear. Eustace and Spear telling me you can hear. Noah saying, of course. We are back. And we're good to go. Okay. I don't see Scorpion here anymore. So we won't go with that. But if you guys now have questions and you want to hop in the Discord and raise your hand, let me know and I can answer your questions. And we are back on the big computer. Thank you, Burbank Water and Power, for kicking that back on for me for one more LA stream.
Hello, can you hear me?
I sure can. What's going on, Spear?
Oh, hold on a second. Hold on, Sunday. I can hear you. I can hear you. It's just like the volume seems very low. Give me a second. Yes. Yeah, perfect. So, how you doing, Tyler? How?
I'm doing well, man.
Well,
what's your question?
My question. So my question is that I want to see if we're able to get an example of like the set chess pieces, for a TV series because I want to have a better understanding of what I want to write because I feel like that is something that's I feel like it's something completely different from a movie.
No.
And I already have the Snowpiercer example right here,
Oh,
but
okay.
that you gave us before.
Okay.
And so I want to see if that's culminates the whole TV series or does it culminate just only the pilot itself?
Sure. Well, okay. Good question. First off, there's going to be certain pieces that are going to be the exact same, as is the nature of story, right? So you're obviously going to have a concept, you're going to have a core character web, you're going to have your philosophical conflict, you're going to have set pieces, you're going to have a ton of the same things. The biggest differences between a TV series and a film is going to be, obviously it's going to be that you have more episodes and each of those episodes are going to have their own circle and their own flow. You're also very likely going to have, depending on the type of TV show that you have, you may have a larger character web than you might find in a movie. However, that's not always the case, and that many times the most important differentiation, like really the most important differentiation between a film and a TV show is that you have multiple episodes that are going to be their own story circles and are going to create the story circles for your season, right? So if I share my screen, so if you have a TV series, okay, you're going to have each, and let's say you have 10 episodes in that series, right? You're going to have a pilot, and you're going to have all of these episodes are going to have their own story circle flow. And then let's say if you have, let's say, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we'll just say this, right? I'm just going to put some more down here. And then you can think about this big season as having its own larger beats, right? So like if this first episode is our pilot, right? And it's going to have all the same basic, like base layer elements that a movie's going to have, right? They're not that different. Like a movie versus a book versus a TV show, they're all just stories. So if you think first and foremost from the lens of story and not first and foremost from the lens of that. Spear, you're killing me with the background noise. If you think first and foremost from the lens of story and not first and foremost from the lens of, oh, a movie is totally different from a TV show and this and that, and then the scale at which you're telling your TV show is going to matter with how many characters you have, the same as a movie, right? So like you can have a movie that only has a few characters, and you can have a movie that has tons and tons and tons of characters, right? You could have a huge character web. Same thing for a TV show. You can have a TV show that has only a few characters, and then you can have a TV show that has a ton of characters. However, a TV show is more likely to have more important pivotal characters and may also, depending on the TV show, have multiple protagonists or multiple like storylines happening at the same time that were then going in between. But fundamentally, you're going to have a season. Each of the episodes are going to have their own story circle. You're still going to have a main character. You're going to have all this. You're going to have a pilot. You're going to have a midpoint episode, right? Where we get to a point where we have sort of our 5, right? Our goal achieved where the character is trying to get to here. And then we have a huge problem that arises that destroys their progress at the midpoint and then sends us into the second half of the season. And then you're going to have a climactic finale at the end. And then these beats, so if this is our, like your pilot, you can think of your pilot as your 1, 2, and 3 from the story circle perspective in the sense of your character, your want, and your inciting incident, right? So if we got character, we've got want, we've got inciting incident, that incident, and then the 4, you're going to have like the choice, debate, and choice of commitment. You're going to have goal achieved. You're going to have your surprise problem. And you're going to have your climactic choice and then your change. And then these 3 beats here, character, want, and inciting incident, that from the larger perspective is what is that's what your pilot is. It's essentially how do we get started, right? And then these are going to be the episodes of essentially the choice or the 4 or the entrance into the adventure. And so kind of these episodes through here essentially represent the beat 4 from the big macro season arc story circle. And then your midpoint episode is going to be your 5 and your 6. You're going to get your goal achieved, and you're going to get your surprise problem, right? Your sort of season arc goal achieved, season arc surprise problem. And then essentially these are going to play out similar to like the 4 beats, right? Where we essentially go back to, we're now going towards the climax. This kind of becomes a 4 again. This can be a little bit tough to understand, but then you get to your climactic finale, and your climactic finale is another 6 and 7 beat, and also the 8. So we get the surprise problem, the climactic choice, and ultimately the change that all happens in the end of the season. But the point is, a TV show and a film, they operate very similarly. What you need to understand and study is not how to Linda, if you don't know what I'm drawing, I would highly recommend you check out my latest YouTube video. It's going to give you a lot of context for what you're seeing on the screen now. So yeah, the point is, we're not trying to Spear has left. Spear has left. We are not trying to separate. Like, don't try to just study one story medium. Try to understand fundamentally how a story works, right? And a story, no matter its medium, is going to have certain elements inside of it. And then you're going to have a bigger story is going to have more characters, more conflicts at play, these kinds of things. And a smaller story, which means less characters, is going to be smaller, less elements at play. And so let me explain the fractal nature of the story circle. The fractal nature of the story circle. So, what does fractal mean? Let's get a Google definition for fractal here. Fractal definition. Okay, this is actually the best way to think about a fractal. This is great. Please open it. Okay. Yeah, this is great. So look at this image here. Okay, this is something that we observe as a part of nature, where patterns repeat big as they are small. So think about this, right? When we're looking at this crazy, infinitely looping GIF, there's one big triangle here, and then there's a lot of little triangles that make up the big triangle. There's like one big one, and then you can see like these triangles represent the big triangle, and then in those little triangles, there's other triangles, and it kind of goes all the way down. It's a repeating pattern all the way down, and it is a repeating pattern all the way big. Okay? This is something that we see. It's a part of like math. It's a part of nature. It's a part of the way in which God has divinely created the pattern of the life that we exist inside of. Okay? So, stories also follow a fractal. Okay? So a story circle is a structural tool that can be used to describe a single scene, if you wanted to, all the way up to a 300 book epic story, saga. Okay? And so the idea is that you can use a story circle to understand your writing at different levels. So if we have a character is always our 1, debate and choice is our 4. This can also be considered the adapt or the act, essentially where the character is crossing the threshold and going on the adventure. Essentially they are choosing the adventure here. You can think about it this way, right? The 5 is the want achieved. So the idea being that your character kind of, at some level, they get what they are going after at the 5, which if you watch the video I put up yesterday, you will see that very clearly, 2 very clear examples of how this want achieved works in an act. The 6 is a surprise problem, where after the character has gotten what they wanted, then something unexpected comes up and causes them problems. And then finally, the 7 is the climactic choice. And there's one more beat, which is the change. How has the story world changed after we have gone through this story? Now, you could say this was one movie, right? You could say, okay, so we've got a character, this is our protagonist. They want to do something, so they encounter the inciting incident. This ends up being Act 1, where character encounters their inciting incident and launches themselves onto the adventure. Then this becomes Act 2, where the character goes on the adventure and gets to the midpoint, right? Gets to the want achieved. Then Act 3 or Act 2B, depending on your definition, is where the character realize they encounter the surprise problem where something goes horribly wrong for them at the midpoint, where they did not end the story. They did not get what they wanted to actually get. Something caused them a problem, usually the antagonist. And then finally, your final act, your Act 4 or your Act 3, is your climax and your climactic choice. And so you can distill an entire screenplay to 8 beats. So when I'm working with writers, and also in my course, which is on sale today, link in the description, practicalscreenwriting.com, what I usually do is I'm trying to get a sense of just our initial 8 beats. So somebody is coming in, I read their screenplay, or we're trying to develop a story together. I'm looking for, okay, who's our character? What do they want? What are they going after? Do we have an inciting incident for Act 1, right? This is one of the biggest things I'm going to look for. Do we have an inciting incident? I'm going to look for a midpoint. At the middle of their screenplay, do we have a midpoint where things go horribly wrong for the character? So in The Dark Knight, spoiler alert, Rachel dies at the midpoint because what happens is Batman captures Joker. That's his 5, believing that that's what is gonna help him. And then the surprise problem is Joker planned to be caught, and Joker kills Rachel. And so then I'm also looking for a climax, right? Do they have a climax that is working, right? So just in the beginning, right, when I'm trying to review somebody's screenplay, I'm not trying to look at 18,000 little things. I'm looking at, do we have an inciting incident? Do we have a midpoint? Do we have a climactic choice? You know, if we can start with those 3 key beats, these 3 points right here, that's going to really help us figure it out. Once I understand that, remember, we're talking about fractals. Now I can say, okay, each one of these acts now can become its own screenplay, or its own, story circle, not screenplay. So then we can say, okay, Act 1 now becomes its own story circle. And now, if I already understand what my inciting incident is, well, great. Now I can plug that in to my Act 1, and now I already have I already can start to have a sense of what my Act 1 is going to be. If I have my Act 2, and I grab my story circle for Act 2, well then great. I already have some level of the beats of what Act 2 is going to look like, and this becomes my Act 2 story circle. If I know what my midpoint, and then this is going to be where the midpoint happens in Act 2. In my Act 3 of 4, if I understand what my surprise problem is and what's going to destroy my character's progress, well then great. I already can have a sense of what that act is going to look like. And then if I have my Act 4 here, and I know what my climax is, well then, great. I already have a sense of what is going to be happening in that act. And so then, now I'm using a story circle to figure out what I need for 30 pages. 30 pages here, 30 pages here, 30 pages here, and 30 pages here. And each of those 30 pages are going to break down into around 12 to 20 scenes usually. And so now, and then if I can get a sense of what each of these 8 beats need to be, well then now I can go into writing my scenes already understanding that I need to make around 15 scenes to express 8 beats. And now suddenly I'm able to wrap my head around what I need to actually write in a clear, concise, focused way where I am not washing around my screenplay, trying to figure out what's going on, writing stuff I have no idea what's going on, no understanding of any structural beats, no understanding of anything, which is how most people write. Okay? Now, when you do this, you can also go the other way and say, you can take multiple movies and make them one screenplay. So if I took episodes 1 through 6 of Star Wars, I could plot the entire saga of Star Wars, episodes 1 through 6. Konami Kid, this will be available under the Livestream tab on my YouTube channel. The recording will be available there, along with all of the other stream recordings. If I take the Star Wars saga, which ends at episode 6, because no movies were made after that, then we can say, okay, we can actually plan this out. And then essentially, the 1, 2, 3, this is episode 1, Phantom Menace. Right? Again, remember, we're looking at fractals here. So what I'm saying is, it is a repeating pattern. It is the same big as it is small. Does that make sense? It is the same in one screenplay, one story circle for a whole screenplay, one story circle for a single act, and then you can even blast it out even further and say, multiple movies can be distilled down into one single story circle. So episode 1 would be The Phantom Menace. Stead, good question. I'm going to answer that in a moment. And then the 4 is episode 2, Attack of the Clones. And also notice, why is episode 1, Phantom Menace, 3 beats, but episode 2, Attack of the Clones, is only 1 beat? Well, because this 1 is character, 2 is want. So really, Phantom Menace is the inciting incident. We know that Anakin wants to be a Jedi, and now he actually goes into a situation where he meets a Jedi and can actually become one. Episode 2 is Attack of the Clones. The 5 is episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And then again, this is from Anakin's perspective. because Anakin is the character of the full Star Wars saga. And then essentially the 6 would be episodes. This would be episode 4 and 5, because from Darth Vader's perspective, he is essentially living in the surprise problem from this point forward, right? Like, he fell to the dark side, and now he is stuck being a Sith for the 2 movies. And then 7 and 8, this is episode 6. Return of the Jedi, where Darth Vader makes the climactic choice to destroy Emperor Palpatine and balance the Force. Thomas, it does come from Luke's perspective. However, the entire saga of 1 through 6 is Anakin's story. It is Anakin who makes the climactic choice at the end of episode 6. It is Anakin who wants to be the Jedi in Phantom Menace. It is Anakin who has the opportunity to become a Jedi. It is Anakin who struggles back and forth between the Sith versus the Jedi. It is Anakin who turns to the dark side at the 5. It is Anakin who fights against Luke in the 6 because he has turned to the dark side, and it is Anakin who makes the final choice in the end to bring balance to the Force. It is Anakin who is the chosen one. And so, I hope through this illustration you can see that one story circle can be used to describe an entire movie. If you want to, and then one story circle can be used to describe each of your 4 acts. And if you want to see a video about that, watch my, I did 2 videos on where I broke down 2 different movies. I did The Dark Knight, and I did, what's that other movie called? Silence of the Lambs. So,
the fundamentals of screen.
Here we go. We'll just do it this. So these 2 videos.
If
here,
you're new to screenwriting, you may have Googled story structure or script.
Okay. So these 2 videos here, using the story circle to structure your screenplay and how to structure your screenplay. These 2 videos will walk you through these right here. Walk you through all 4 acts in a screenplay and how they're operating. And then you can back up the story circle even more and see 6 whole movies distilled down to 8 beats, because the story circle is a repeating pattern. This is why it is the structure that I use. I do not use a story structure that is based on some guy who decided that page 12 was your inciting incident in your screenplay, like you might read in Save the Cat. Okay, what I am using is story, is the organic story tool. I am not using something that was invented by a screenwriter. I am using something that is a naturally occurring entity. I don't know what the word would be. A naturally occurring logic path, if you will. Okay, so I had a few different questions here. So I'm going to go to Stead. Stead, he said that in The Dark Knight's midpoint, Rachel dies, but on the story circle, the midpoint is labeled want achieved. So in The Dark Knight, are the 5 and 6 swapped? Is the surprise problem actually the midpoint? No. Okay, so here's what happens. Well, okay, the surprise problem, what happens in, actually, if you look in here, let's look at this video, actually, because I look at this exact thing.
If you're new to screenwriting,
I sound like a little youngin in this one. Okay. So what happens is, and also you should use my most recent videos word definitions of the circle, because these older definitions are not quite as clear. So what happens is, when you fractal down the story circle, okay, act 2, this act here, okay, Stead, let me, tell me if this makes sense to you, because I'm going to be very specific about what I'm going to say here, and I hope this makes sense. So for a screenplay, you have 4 acts, like I said. So 4 acts in a screenplay. And then you're going to have your act 1, you're going to have your act 2, you're going to have your act 3, and you're going to have your act 4. Now, the act 2 and the act 4, these are climactic acts. Watch the video I put up yesterday to see what I mean by a climactic act. It is where we have a huge moment of drama. And then act 1 and act 3 here, act 3 of 4, or act 2b, these are our setup acts. They still have climaxes in them, but from the larger perspective of the story, they are setup acts. So what happens is, the midpoint from the big story perspective, if we take The Dark Knight, and we say, okay, let's put The Dark Knight in one single story circle, then the 5 is where Joker is captured, and the 6 is Rachel dies and Joker escapes. And then the 7, which takes place in the final act, is Joker is captured again, recaptured. Now, taking these beats and transferring them into your act level, what happens is, in your second act, in act 2, after act 1, the midpoint climax, the midpoint climactic movement plays out through the 5 and the 6 and the 7. And the midpoint climax in The Dark Knight is Joker is captured, immediate problem in the act. No. The immediate problem in the act is Joker has Harvey and Rachel. He has them kidnapped. Batman tries to save Rachel and fails. Rachel dies. Okay? So what happens is, this second half of Act 2 is the climactic half of the act, and is the movement in which the midpoint plays through. So this beat here, the 5 and the 6, play through the 5, 6, 7, and 8 of Act 2. Why? Because it is a repeating pattern, right? Joker is captured, Joker has Harvey and Rachel. Batman tries to save Rachel, and Rachel dies. But from the big story perspective, it's Joker's captured, and Rachel dies. Yes, so this whole sequence is the midpoint. This whole kit and caboodle, all of this is the midpoint. It is one single movement of drama all happening together. When you watch...
Instead, Bruce was unaware that Harvey would do this, so he continues to adapt, knowing that the Joker will come for Harvey Dent. The Joker comes after Harvey.
So, we're going to watch a moment of this, and I'm going to show you how this works, right? We are in the center of the movie. This is the dead center of the movie if you go and actually like watch the movie and look.
And Batman finally gets what
So they get what they wanted.
he wants and captures the Joker. But just when Batman has gotten what he wanted, he pays the price.
Okay, right? So then we have this midpoint movement here, and I'm a little bit incorrect because this video is 4 years old and I've gotten even better about expressing this. But the point is, this is the midpoint of the story. The midpoint is multiple beats here. It's going to be your 5, your 6, and your 7 all together as one single movement of drama. If you watch the video I put up yesterday, how to write a perfect climax, which I highly recommend you take a look at, you will see how I am expressing how a climax works. And a midpoint is a climax. The midpoint is the climax of the first half of your story. Why? Because it's a fractal. Your midpoint just means the climax of the first half, which means it works like a climax does. And then every time you have a 7, every time you have a 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. Each of these climactic choices and surprise problems, the 6 and the 7 together, these are the climactic movement. And it will all usually take place in the location of the 5, right? And so this becomes your climactic movement. And so really, there are 4 climaxes in a screenplay. But people don't really write this way, and that's why movies are boring. Or a lot of them recently, especially. Because people are not writing very clearly. However, the movies that are great do understand this and do operate like this. Because an act, one act, is a full story. It is a full movement of drama. It is its own sort of contained thing. This is the problem where people write like they like to have this big old line. It's like, oh, this is my screenplay. I've got 120 pages here, and I've got kind of an act 1 here and kind of an act here, and this is my act 1, and this is my act 2, and this is my act 3, and I know I've got an inciting incident, and I know I've got a climax somewhere over here, but the rest of this is just gonna be a big old mess. That's how most people write. That's probably how you're writing right now. Stead says, yep. Yeah, this is how most people write. When I read screenplays, this is what I see most of the time. And which is usually fine, because then what I'm doing, right, if I read a screenplay and it reads like this, or it's kind of this mess, what I'm usually doing is saying, okay, well, first I'm going to distill all of this into one story circle. And so then the first thing I'm going to do is say, okay, well, let's see. They've kind of got an inciting incident. So great. I'm going to take this and I'm going to plug it in right there. If it's working. Sometimes it's not even working. But if it's working, I'm going to take that inciting incident. That inciting incident's now my 3. I'm going to take whatever they've got for the climax, and that is going to be here. Well, it's from the big story perspective, it'll just be here. And then one of the first questions I'm going to ask, and what I think is one of the most important yet overlooked elements of a screenplay, is the midpoint. You need to have a midpoint because the midpoint anchors the entire story. The midpoint is this big climax that takes place at the center of your story that allows the first half of the story to come to a climax, and then now we go back into a new setup here, and then we can actually head to the final climax. And so when I'm looking at someone's story, I'm looking at, okay, who's their main character? Does that main character have a want? What is their inciting incident, and do they have something of usable quality that we can shift, we can mold into a fully fleshed inciting incident? Do they have something of a climax that we can use as our, clay to start to mold this into a real climax? And do they have some semblance of a midpoint? Most of the time people don't have a strong midpoint, but when I read a screenplay and they have some kind of a midpoint, it makes my life so much easier, because it means that we can actually build out the first half of the story pretty quickly. Thomas is asking me about Blue Moon. I haven't written another draft of that. I don't ever really plan to. I don't think I'm going to make a lot of moon landing type or moon-based type movies in the future. Where do I stand on the movie Barbarian? I did not like Barbarian. I thought it was pretty lame and kind of overall bad vibe. Daniel, I see Daniel is trying to speak. Let's see if Daniel's going to hop in here.
Hello?
Hey, Daniel. What's your question?
Hey, so my service or connection's good, so if you stop hearing me, I guess let me know. But it's actually pretty fitting because I was gonna ask if you could take a look at my story circle and tell me if you think it's working or if I did it right.
Totally.
All right, so I'll post the link in the chat here.
Sure.
Give me 1 sec.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had it copied, but now it's...
Side note.
Some of the stuff...
I love this web whiteboard.
You might have...
It's like my infinite whiteboard. Super fun. Okay.
All right, do you see it? Because...
Yes.
Okay.
Devour.
So basically, my first question, I don't know if for sure if I even filled it out correctly, and if it is it working? So I don't know if you want to read it or if I should read it or what, or skim through it. You could.
Yeah. So here's what I'll do, Daniel. You're breaking up pretty badly on me. But what I'll do is I'll go ahead and run through this and give you some notes, and then from there, we'll see about if your connection is pretty decent. But let me just run through some notes here for you, and we will go from there. So we've got our character, Eunice Taylor, and I'm going to put you on mute because I'm getting some background noise. Eunice wants to protect her family from evil/danger by severely isolating from the outside world. And an unknown and badly injured man stumbles onto the Taylor property and collapses. Okay. Debate and choice. Eunice's husband, Ethan, wants to help the man because he sees it as the right thing to do. Eunice believes that the man could be a bad man. Helping him isn't worth the risk. Ethan wins over and essentially makes the choice for the family. Eunice is upset with this outcome. And over time, Ethan begins to trust the stranger and allows him to interact closer with the family. Eunice becomes more upset. Their only neighbor is a man named Jacob, and he argues that doing the right thing doesn't benefit anyone and isn't worth the risk. In the middle of the night, she decides to secretly force the man to leave the property at gunpoint. Okay, great. Want achieved, Eunice has achieved her desire. She has protected her family from the danger of the outside world by forcing it away from her home, and she feels at peace.
Surprise problem. The stranger she forced to leave returns the next night. With him he brings a band of other men. Ooh. They attack the home. Eunice hides her son in a safe room. The men kill and torture her husband in front of her. Oh my gosh. They would have killed the whole family if not for Jacob showing up and killing a majority of the men. The remaining men flee. She goes to the safe room to retrieve her son, but he is gone, nowhere to be found. She realizes she must change her actions and leave safety to find her son. Jacob and Eunice leave the home. They find the son held captive by the gang. They rescue her son, and the gang surrounds them. Eunice realizes the only way out for her son is to sacrifice her own life. She does so, and her son lives and escapes. New character status quo. Her son is alive and safe and heads to the city with Jacob. Yeah, Daniel, I think that's working. I really like that. It flows very nice. Yeah, I think you've got something that's pretty solid here. We have a clear want. She wants to protect her family. We have a clear inciting problem. The man comes. We have a very clear debate and choice. Very easy to see Eunice versus her husband here. I think that's very strong. Very clear that she decides to, this is her ultimately kind of her choice of commitment. She forces the man to leave. She gets what she wanted because the man is gone. The surprise problem is that men come back, and ultimately she has to sacrifice herself to save her son. I think that's working very nicely, Daniel.
Yeah, is my do you know my connection's better? Like, am I breaking up at all?
I can hear you well right now.
Okay, cool. So I'm glad to hear that's working, but I had a follow-up that was kind of like, when I was making this, I had like a hard time fitting it in. So I had another, I guess you could call it a subplot.
Okay.
And I think I talked about it, I don't know, a few streams ago. One of the first times I talked to you, probably don't remember, but basically, the story starts off with, so she has two sons. The story starts off, and the younger one is sick, and like that's just like how the story starts. Is like from the very beginning he's sick, but it's sort of like not life threatening or anything, so it's kind of just like there. And then actually this was my original like main plot line. So this is kind of where I don't know if I should just remove it or if there's a way to make it fit with what I have in what I just sent you. But basically what I was going to have happen was it gets worse. And their doctor comes and says that they should leave to get him better treatment, because they won't be able to where they are. And so essentially they have a similar debate and choice kind of thing where the husband thinks they should leave and do it, and she disagrees, and ultimately they decide to stay. But the husband says if he gets worse, like, we're going to go, but we can stay for now and see how it goes. Mm-hmm. Basically, he gets worse, the son, and the husband, basically takes the son, or like starts loading up the son, and basically says, we're going to leave. Like basically not demanding, but he's just going to do it. He's not debating anymore. Mm-hmm. And then she, this would be closer to the midpoint, points the gun at her husband and basically says, no, like, you're not going anywhere. And then the son ultimately dies after that because of her deciding to stay, and they didn't get him help. So that they kind of like almost is like a main plot, it seems, but I don't know if that could work as like a subplot or what. And the midpoint would kind of like, all this would be kind of like building at the same time as like the story circle that you just read. Mm-hmm. But my plan was to connect by, it was actually the original stranger that came that was, I don't know, poisoned in the center process long before he and the point of that be sort of illustrating what I have as like a story rule that like evil is like inevitable, and basically that she and her husband, it was answered that the property, but it was a plan that he had all along to do what he was going to do, just because he's like an evil guy. So I don't know if I should just like not hold on to that sickness plot or if there's a way to like, I don't know, fit it in. Because when I was making the story circle, I really couldn't figure out how to like add it in if I even should. So I don't know. What do you think?
You can absolutely keep it, and the fact that it is falling in line with the beats that you have is great. So how this would work, and I copied your circle down here so I can do this, is think of your story circle beats as headings or like a certain vibe where things can take place in that vibe. So it's like in the sense of when we're in the 5, right, the one achieved, we're in the one achieved vibe in the sense of we can have multiple elements of our story in, let's say, like this kind of B plot or this other element that you've got playing into the other pieces of the story. So what you could essentially, how you would do this is you're just adding in and saying, okay, I've got like my sort of main plot scene here for main plot scene A, you know, main plot scene B here, but then you can also have your sort of B plot scene A. That is also the expression of the want achieved, right? So like in a way, like the want achieved things of one story are happening in line with want achieved of the other sort of main plot line, right? So you get this sense that when everything is going right, everything is or when one thing is going right, everything is going right. When one thing is going wrong, everything is going wrong. And so you can just kind of set it up like this to where you're coming in and you're essentially building out your scenes as the different expressions of that larger story circle beat, and then it would kind of look like that.
Okay, so it's kind of like, you know, her holding, you know, pointing the gun at her husband would happen around the same time as her, you know, forcing the stranger to leave. And then maybe there's like a relative piece, you know, where the guy's gone, so she feels good. And maybe even her son who's sick, like starts to seem like he's getting better. And then like so that's the get what she wants. And then sort of like the surprise problem would be the same time where the son dies and like the group of guys come back, kind of like that.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I think that makes sense. And I felt like that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know if I was doing the story circle right, because also a big reason I wanted the choice to like leave the property was because I want her to say no at first, and then of course like near the end when her son has to leave, like there actually different choices there to kind of show her arc, I guess. And so it's kind of like actually she says no, and then she recognizes her wrong. She decides yes, that she's going to do that.
You're cutting out pretty bad for me right now. You're cutting out pretty bad for me right now, but yeah, I think what you've got here is working pretty strongly. And yeah, I think each of the beats that you sent here, I don't really have big obvious notes for you on this story circle. I think you have something that is working here.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks so much for bringing this forward, Daniel. This is looking really good.
Anyways, so I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Oh, Jason is here. What's up, Jason?
Hey, made it.
You made it.
Woo.
What's your question again?
So, unfortunately, I haven't been able to work on my project because I've had a lot happen to me.
Okay.
Not good things, but besides that point, I just wanted to get your insight on something like, what would be your best advice when it comes to world building?
Yeah, let's talk about world building.
Sure.
So,
Go ahead.
best way to world build, from my perspective, is
Yeah.
start with characters. Characters first.
Got it.
Usually characters first. Whether it's character archetype in the sense of, okay, I need an antagonist, who might that be? Or just, I have certain characters and I want to use them in a certain way. Or here's what I would say. Sometimes you might have a setting before you have characters. But the characters really become like the most important thing in any setting, right? Like the characters
Right.
are always the most important thing to put the camera on, to make the scene about. Like characters are always the most important. And so what you're doing when you are world building is you are essentially creating this loop between your characters and your setting to say, okay, I have this kind of detail about my character. Now, where might that character be? And who might that character be in that place with? And now you are starting to, I think it's best to world build from the perspective of characters and where they are and what characters are in that place. And then, so it's like, who are your characters? Where are they? Or where is this story taking place? What are the characters in that world? And then that's kind of the starting point to go back and forth. And then you're going to have certain important objects come out of characters and their settings, right? And those can also become scene objects and these kinds of things. And then the more characteristics and the more traits you give to the characters, the more then you can also give more traits and characteristics to the setting. And what I would say is detail and specificity is the most important thing here. I don't care anywhere near as much about if somebody has some sort of big fantasy map. If you have a sci-fi, or if you have a fantasy story that has a map like Middle Earth, that doesn't really matter to me anywhere near as much as what Bilbo Baggins's house looks like inside. In the sense of, you're not trying to be super big and broad and wide. I'm most interested in who are the characters in the small human-sized locations, and what are the specific interesting objects that those characters specifically have, right? And so it is the detail and the specificity that ultimately will create your world, whether you are creating a high fantasy story or you are creating a sitcom about some characters that work at Taco Bell. Either way, it is the detail and the specificity in their world that is going to make it interesting. And a lot of the times, small objects are the most interesting things that you can have. For example, I'll show you some objects that I have. I have a little knife here that I actually found this knife on the ground way back in Tennessee. I've got
Oh, wow.
my Greek bust here, right? This little strange little object. I've got a Carl Jung cornerstone. He had this cornerstone thing here, and this was made for me by someone very important. And so essentially that's what you want to do, is you want to create. World building is in characters. World building is in little objects. World building is in those sorts of things.
Got it. Got it.
Cool.
Yeah, I haven't made a map yet for my thing. I didn't think that was necessary until much later on when I'd get into the inciting incident for the finale.
For sure.
Yeah, so All right. Well, thanks for that. And
Yeah, thanks for bringing a question forward today.
Of course.
Migsy has a question. He said, I have a question about choice. Can you talk about how choice relates to each of the 8 beats versus the particular emphasis on the 4 and 7 climactic choices? If you cannot address this today, maybe you can during the next live. Yes, I can definitely talk about this. Absolutely. So, in these 2 videos, my latest 2 videos on the channel, how to write a perfect scene and how to write a perfect climax, these videos were kind of created together. I know it was literally 4 months in between them, but they were kind of written together as a cohesive unit here. So essentially, all scenes are about choices. Okay? So every time you have a scene is about a choice, because a choice is how you actually have conflict. You have character A versus character B, and if they're not physically fighting, if they are arguing in dialogue, then it means that they are not trying to kill each other, they are debating a choice, right? Therefore, all of your scenes, regardless of your beat structure, are going to deal with some sort of choice, right? And those choices can be very, very, very small, and they can also be very, very, very big, right? So you can have, a small scene between 2 characters trying to decide whether or not they're going to confront another character, and then it can be very, very short, or it can be like, are we going to this place or not? You can have very, very small choices in particular scenes. But then there is a scale to choices, right? In the sense that there are more important choices and less important choices. For example, who you marry is an extremely important choice. Whereas what you might eat for lunch today, not as important of a choice, right? So when you understand this sense of scale to choices, then it makes you say, okay, well, I have a story circle here. And what's happening is the 3 is the biggest first problem that we're encountering, right? Biggest, or just let's say big problem that's come up, right? We got a big hairy problem here. And this big problem has to be solved, right? So because we've got this big problem to solve, we're going to formulate some sort of plan on how to solve that big problem, and we have to make a big choice to solve the big problem. That's just the nature of how it works. Welcome, Silverheart. Now, when you get, and now usually what will happen here is this will be a big choice, but it will be a choice that usually there can be sort of like time to debate. So when you have a big problem arise, you might have multiple little scenes here that are choices, maybe choices by the antagonist, let's say. So let's say the antagonist is making a choice in the 3. And now we have a big choice to make from the protagonist perspective at the 4. And then in the surprise problem, you can have another big problem arise. Sometimes, so for example, in Little Miss Sunshine, if you watch the video from yesterday, the big surprise problem is the host tries to pull Olive off stage. And so this is a choice or an action after a choice, if you want to be really technical with the language, which I do. The host tries to pull Olive off stage. So this is an action that he makes. And then because of that, it's forcing an immediate big choice. Okay? So when you're trying to understand the scale or trying to understand how to actually make these choices functional, what happens usually is This is a big choice that has to be made, but usually there's some time to actually debate, as you can see in those two examples from yesterday. The family has some time to debate whether or not like we're actually gonna let Olive go on stage. But then when we have this big problem come up, now we have a huge choice that will also be thematically similar to this big choice, but it has to be made right now, right? There's no debate. And so there's this sense of immediacy in the choice that adds to its importance and adds to the level of stakes at hand. Hopefully that answers your question. Vibov, the storyteller. I walked through that story circle post that I did in my previous live stream. If you go to the live tab, this tab right here on my channel, you will see all of the previous recordings, and it would be this recording right here will be the one that you can get that information from. Also, if you guys are interested, I would highly encourage you to go to practicalscreenwriting.com today, because I have a sale running for the Practical Screenwriting course in honor of the How to Write a Perfect Climax video going live. If you're interested in getting my story framework, if you are interested in getting my writer's mindset, my philosophy on writing, how it works, and how you can shift your beliefs about writing to better help you write, as well as getting a practical sense of how to actually finish a first draft without losing your sanity, and my story framework, then go to practicalscreenwriting.com, click the join button. I am also currently working on all new lessons for the course as well, and this will be the only time to get in at the current sale price before I make those major updates. So check that out, practicalscreenwriting.com. There should be a link below this live stream, and you can also check it out there. Mike asks, Tyler, I'm at work, but I had a question. The conflict of my serial is fact versus fiction and how the line can blur. The hook is that the characters and audience will have their view of reality recontextualized often. I want to know if there's anything in general I should keep in mind or ask myself in constructing a story like this. I also rewatched the plot twist video last night and it helped. Thank you. So right now, based on just sort of fact versus fiction, are you kind of meaning like lie versus truth? And then you're saying that I will have their view of reality recontextualized. I'm not really sure what that's going to look like in practice. So if you were able to maybe blast out a story circle or blast out a small summary of how you see your story playing out, then I could better answer that question. I see Rupert has his hand raised. Let's go to Rupert 0990. Hey Rupert, what's your question? Rupert, are you there?
Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I sure can. What's your question today?
All right. Hey Tyler, I just wanted to say I've been well first of all I want to start off by saying that I've been seeing your videos and streams for a while, but well the thing is I have a story I've been working on,
Mm-hmm.
and I was wondering if you could I don't know, help me out with it.
What's your question?
Seeing your videos and streams. Yeah, okay, so
Make sure to mute the live stream that you have playing in the background, please.
right, my bad. All right, so yeah, I got this story here that I was working on me here. All right, so this is a type of found footage zombie what is it, a horror movie, but like the story is written, but I just like um like I need to like someone to work with to see if there's anything that I need to fix up, or if I can like improve it.
Are you just generally asking me to generally take a general look right now?
Yeah.
So this is what I don't. Okay, I need for when somebody comes to ask me a question, I need some level of specifics. I need something to work with, something that could be immediately looked at quickly on a stream that we could actually move forward on. I don't know if you maybe have a story circle, you maybe have like a small summary, you maybe have a scene outline, you maybe have a beat outline, something that's not just, hey, can you take a general look at the story? Because that's not going to be helpful for you, because it's not easy for me to um, immediately take a look on a stream like that right now. And I don't know the length of it. I don't have any context for it. So if you are able to return with a more specific question, or if you have a specific question right now, that would be excellent.
I got something here
Okay.
that I can read out to you.
Okay. Are you able to place it in the chat so I can take a look?
Um, might not be able to. Hold on. Hold on. Let me just split my screen here. See if I can do that. All right. Okay. It's here it is. So yeah, like I said, it's found footage zombie horror film and all that, but so there's a prologue to it, and then there's the main story to it.
And how are you sending it to me?
So what was that?
How are you sending it to me right now?
Right now I'm just gonna read it out.
I don't want you to read it out. I want to see something written, or I want you to ask a specific question.
Okay. Let me see if I can send it to you then.
All right, Rupert, I'm going to place you back into the audience for now. If you end up getting that over to me, that would be great. I'm going to go ahead and catch up on the YouTube live stream chat here and see what kind of questions you guys have. Thomas, do I consider Batman and Bruce Wayne to be two separate characters? Absolutely not. Jeff Lang says, never seen a video about grammar from you. Grammar is very important to tell emotion in a story. It absolutely can be important. Absolutely, grammar can be very important to the emotion in a story. Couple grammar tips I would tell you. Like, the most important grammar tip I would tell you, absolutely. And it's going to be so hilariously simple, yet very, very important, is subject verb. Okay? Find your subject of the sentence, find the verb, and make sure they are touching. And make sure they start at the beginning of the sentence. And then have the rest of the sentence trail on afterwards. What I see so many times is I'll see words, subject. Or maybe, and then words, verb. Right? This is bad. Or I'll see, wrong subject, right? The not the right subject in the sentence. Like people put an object or the direct object as the subject in the sentence, and then they have wrong verb. Well, they won't even have a verb. I need to get some examples for you because that'll be easier. But like, find your subject, find your verb, and make sure they are touching, and make sure that they're at the beginning of your sentence. So many times people are adding extra stuff to the beginning of their sentence, and that's not really working. And then also people like to split the subject and the verb up, which also does not read well. And another thing is people love to use like flowery language in their stories, which can be sort of fine, but really, in the same way that good editing in a film is invisible, your writing should be invisible as well. People should not be thinking about your words on the page and how eloquent and lovely you read on the page. They should be thinking about the story that you are transmitting into their skull. They should be reading the words on the page, not even realizing they're reading a screenplay because they are so engrossed in the mental image that you have created through those words. The focus is not the words you are sending. The focus is the mental image you are creating through those words. And so when people try to write big $5 words in their scripts and try to sound really smart on the page, all they're doing is taking the reader out of the story. But if you are describing the story in simple, clear language, then they won't think about your writing. They will be thinking about the story you are transmitting to them. Jaleel, can you talk a little about biopics? I would prefer a more specific question. Rupert, here's what we'll do. Don't stress about it this stream. Next time I stream, you can come forward with your document and we can absolutely take a look at it. Don't worry about it. Don't stress about it all right now. We will take a look. I'm actually going to go ahead and wind this stream down anyways. I think it's about time for me to call it a day today. I hope you guys have very much enjoyed the stream. I'm very happy we were able to actually have a full stream today, rather than just me being on my slowly dying laptop. I was kind of worried about that. For those of you who were not here at the beginning of the stream, definitely rewatch the recording. It was a fun little debacle in the beginning. I very much hope you guys enjoyed the stream. It's going to be a little bit of time before I stream next because, like I said, I am moving. So bear with me. It will be next week until I'm streaming next. If you are interested in getting my practical story framework, my writer's mindset, and my advice on how to practically finish your first draft, then I highly recommend you buy the Practical Screenwriting course today. There is a sale for $100 off today. Go to practicalscreenwriting.com or click the link below this live stream. Thank you guys very much for hopping on today. I've really been enjoying getting back into these live streams and talking with you all, hanging out here. These are not going to be going away. I'm going to be doing these more and more and more, and I want to really help you guys develop your stories and help you guys write the best version of your story you possibly can. Thank you guys for asking your questions, for coming on, for joining the Discord. That's another thing. If you want to join the Discord, do so below. The link should be below this video in the description. Stevenson, good to see you here. Thank you all very much. Kyle, if you want to learn more about the content, go to the website and scroll down. If you go to the website and scroll down, you will see the different sections that are inside the course. You can also listen to some of the current members of the course and what they say about their experience. Thanks, Enrico, Jaleel, Vibov, Stevenson, Rupert, Jason, Migsy. It is ongoing. Migsy, the Practical Screwdriving course is video lessons. So it is video lessons and worksheets that I give you inside that. So once you have it for as long as you possibly want. It doesn't expire. You get it all, and you get all the new stuff that I add in the future for completely free. And that is what I'm currently working on right now, is a lot of new stuff. No, thank you, Mixie. Peace out. See you guys next time. I will see you guys next week. Thank you very much for hopping on.